Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual STEM night for the month of June. My name is Regina Price, and this is
Todd Kruger, Chair of the Natural Sciences here at College of the Albemarle.
And this month we are doing Zoom Racing. So hopefully you all have picked up your kit for Zoom Racing, and we're going to go through everything that you should have in your kit so we can go ahead and start building your cars. All right, so we have 2 cups with our lids, and then you should have a baggie, and inside of your baggie you are going to have, I think you have like 5 rubber bands, you have a pony bead, you have a washer, a popsicle stick, and a paper clip. And also you should have 2 pieces of tape. It look like little name labels, but this is going to be your tape.
Exactly. Now, there are a lot of rubber bands out there. You may want to try some different rubber bands that you find around the house. That's perfectly fine. These guys in your kit are pretty thin, but if you find a thicker one you want to try, you might have more success with that. Should we show them what the finished product looks like so they know what they're about to build?
Let them see.
All right, so here is the completed Zoom Racer. Okay. We're going to end up taping these 2 coffee cups together. There's a rubber band holding a lot of components on this. The rubber bands run right down the middle of the cup. And by winding up this cup, hopefully we'll end up with a completed racer that will move across the table once we let this go.
Right. So first, we are going to get started with your cups. Great. I need you to take your cups and turn them upside down and go inside your baggie. Go ahead and get your washer out. You're going to place your washer on the bottom of your cup, and then you are going to trace it. Okay? You're going to trace the washer, and you want to make sure that you identify your center of the bottom of your cup. Okay? So once you have that done, you can go ahead, take your washer off, and I have my trace of my washer, and I have my center, and now I'm gonna go ahead and make my hole in the bottom of my cup. So I'm using my scissors, so hopefully you have scissors or something at the house. Now, if you are not old enough, make sure you get a parent to help you to make that hole in the bottom of your cup. You don't wanna do anything to injure yourself, okay? All right, so I'm just going to use the end of my scissor right in my center to make my hole, and then I'm going to use my scissors to cut it a little bit to get my hole in the bottom of my cup, okay? If you go outside of the line, it's perfectly okay. It will be all right, okay? You just need to have that little hole there. So mine doesn't look perfect, but I have my 2 holes at the ends of my cup. All right. So next, what are we going to do, Todd?
Sounds like a good time to tape our 2 cups together. Okay. This is what you want it to look like. Now, I use some duct tape, but you're welcome to use the white pieces of tape in your kit, or if you have Scotch tape or any other kind of tape at home, any tape will work. Just make sure you tape around the outside, and hopefully, when you cut your holes, you'll be able to see there is a hole all the way through the center of these cups. That's where the rubber bands need to stretch on through. So make sure when you've taped these together, your holes are lined up through the middle. Now, once we get these fully assembled, you guys will have the option to color these however you want. But I like a nice simple gray racing stripe right now.
Looks good. I need one more piece.
That looks good.
To get mine covered all the way around.
Excellent. So while she's taping these together, the next thing we're going to want to do is to make a little chain of rubber bands. So if you have, if I can borrow these, if you have some of these rubber bands in your kit, these will make a nice chain. If you're using this size that comes in your kit, you're going to want 3 of these rubber bands linked together. Here's how we're going to do that. So if you haven't linked these together before, you're going to want to put 1 rubber band across another rubber band like this. And when I bend up the edges, I just want to put one side through the other side. Oops. Let me try that again. I lost a hold of it. There we go. Okay, so see what I've got here. I pulled 1 rubber band across the middle. I just want to put one side loop through the other side loop and then pull it up through the middle. so that when I pull them, they make a nice figure 8. So now I've got 2 rubber bands linked together. I'm going to do that one more time to make a chain of 3. So I'm going to hang one loop from one of these other rubber bands. I'm going to bend one side through the other and pull it up. Now I've got a chain of 3 rubber bands. That's the goal. That's what's going to be stretched right through the middle of our Zoom Zoom car here. And if you have some longer rubber bands like this, they might only need 2 rubber bands per chain. You can see 2 rubber bands are about the same length as the 3 rubber bands that we got from our kit. So you might want to just play with that. But the rule of thumb is this. If you can make a chain of rubber bands that is just a little bit shorter than your cups, so that it has to stretch a bit to get to the ends, that's perfect. Find a chain of rubber bands that's a little bit shorter than your total car's width. All right, now that we've got our chain of rubber bands, it's about time to start hooking things to them.
All right, before we start to hook them up, everyone should have 2 lids. So you're going to take your lids, you're going to find the center, and you're going to poke a hole in the center of both lids.
Sounds good. So if they have a pencil or pen at home, that ought to work pretty well. Find a nice, maybe ballpoint pen. Just put a little hole right in the middle of the lid, just like that.
Yes.
Okay.
So once you have your holes and your centers of your lids, now you can attach your paper clip to the end of your chain. So you only have 1 paper clip. So attach your paper clip to the end of one of your to the end of your rubber band chain. So I just pushed out the smaller piece and I put my rubber band on there, and so now I'm good.
All right.
Okay.
Do that.
So now you want to drop the paper clip through the hole. So it's like we're threading it. And if you pull your paper clip, come on.
All right, now this is the hard part. You can't let go of the rubber bands or it's gonna just disappear inside the cup, like that. So one thing you might wanna do to make sure this doesn't disappear inside your cup is to get your popsicle stick. Stick that through so it holds on to the paper clips, to the rubber bands on one end of your car. And then I can flip it upside down and work from the paper clip end of the car. Okay. I'm gonna take one of my lids with the hole in the middle and poke the paper clip through so that when I let it go, it keeps everything attached. There's one side of the car all done. Looks good. Make sure that stays on snugly, and I think half the car is done. Now, you may want to play with that a little bit. Just make sure everything isn't going to slip on through. If your hole got a little too big, that's okay. All you have to do is put a piece of tape around the hole, make the hole a little bit smaller then, make sure the tape sort of makes the hole a little smaller so that the paper clip doesn't slip on through. All right, there we go.
Next part.
All right.
Now, you have to attach your second lid to this end. And again, you have to thread it through. Now, my popsicle stick has popped off, but it's okay. So now I have to thread this end of my rubber band chain through my second lid.
Okay.
And then you're going to see your car come to shape.
Okay.
So it's not the easiest thing. So this is a trick. I'm going to take, now you can use anything that you have. So we have a bread tie. So we're going to take the twisty tie and I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to like make me a needle. And then I'm going to thread the hole in the top of my cup. And so it's easier for me to be able to pull my rubber band through and I don't lose it. And it's okay if you don't get it on the first try. Just don't get frustrated. And so, see, I pulled it all the way through. So now I have my rubber band up, so I'm good.
That looks good. I'm going to try that too. So I'm going to take any twisty tie I could find around the house and maybe just make a nice little handle on the end of my rubber band. so that I have something that's a little stiffer to push into the lid. I pull that through. Excellent.
Magic.
I think we've got it. Now we've got a rubber band running all the way through the car. I'm going to go ahead and put a popsicle stick through the loop of the rubber band now, just to make sure that doesn't disappear back inside the cup when I let go.
Right, and that will hold it in place.
There we go. All right. I like that. It's feeling snug. I feel like that rubber band's holding everything together.
So we're good to go. So the last two things that you have are going to be a washer and a bead. And your washer needs to go on first. So you're going to thread your washer. And I still have my twisty tie. So I'm using that to help me out, because if I lose my rubber band, I will probably cry. So I'm going to thread that. And it's going to stay up there. And then your pony bead, I'm going to place that on next. Like I said, the twisty tie was something, it wasn't in your kit, but it's just something to make it a little bit easier. And now I can pull out my popsicle stick. And then your popsicle stick will go on top of your bead. I can remove my twist tie. And I have built my car.
That looks good. Well done. Now, if you don't have a twisty tie, that's okay. You can still just sort of push the rubber band into a small loop here, push that through the center of the washer. Might take a little bit of work to get it to go through, but as soon as you get it through and you can pull that out the other side, we'll end up with about the same look. There we go. So now I've got the washer on, and then you want to put the bead on. So again, make a small loop to push through the center of the bead. Might take a little twisting and a little work to get this to happen if you don't have any twisty ties handy. There we go. All right. So now, getting the rubber band to come out the other side of the bead. Once I get a hold of that rubber band, all I have to do is pull out the popsicle stick and push it back through the loop on top.
Great.
Whew. That takes a lot of work.
So it might take you a little while to get your cars built, but it's okay. Okay? Just keep on trying. And sometimes, like what Mr. Todd said, his bead flew off. It's okay. Just pick it back up and start over.
Ready to start winding these up, see if they work?
Let's see.
Okay. You guys are going to have to wind quite a while. There's a lot of slack in this rubber band. It's going to take a long time before you start feeling that rubber band resisting a little bit. Once you feel like the rubber band is kind of fighting you when you're twisting, then you'll know it's getting close. Okay. You can feel the rubber band starting to fight me just a little bit. Feel it resisting a little bit more now. It's going to take a while. We're going to talk about the science of what's happening on the inside of this car in just a minute. Let's see if this works first.
So definitely the size of your rubber band chain is affecting how long you're going to have to wind.
Yeah. All right. Now, this isn't fully wound up, but let's just see if this works. I put this down on the table. What happens? I'm going to let go. Voila. Hey. Well, that certainly worked. Didn't drive straight, but he sure drove.
I'm going to drop mine on the floor so we can see it roll.
That's a good idea. Let's see if it works. There it goes. Well, that worked perfectly.
I built a car.
So, you guys are going to want to play around with this. Maybe try different rubber bands. Maybe try winding it up different amounts. Maybe try different starting positions. Maybe try it on a hillside. See what happens and see if you can get this to take on a number of different paths. See what makes it go faster, what makes it go longer. Why does this work though? What is it about this rubber band that makes motion happen here? If I put this down and let it go, it flies off. But I didn't tell it to rotate. So what is it inside this car that is making this thing start to move? What do we think?
What do we think is happening? How come that car started rolling? All we did was wind it up. So what's happening?
Right. So I'm going to teach you 3 terms that you need to know. First one is kinetic energy. So remember what energy is, right? You guys know what energy is, right? You wake up in the morning, you feel groggy, it's because you don't have any energy. Energy is that stuff that helps you do other stuff. You got to have energy in order to move and to complete tasks and to go to classes and to get done all the things you want to get done. Kinetic energy. That's the type of energy that comes from moving. Right? The faster I'm jogging, the more energy I have. Okay? So that's energy I have when I'm moving. There's another kind of energy that we call potential energy. Okay? That's the energy I have that's stored up inside something. Like when I've wound up this rubber band inside the car, as soon as I wind it up, I could just sit here and watch it for a long time, but nothing is moving here. But there's energy inside it. It's not kinetic energy because it's not moving. It's what we call potential energy. Right? There's potential that something is going to happen as soon as I set this down and let it go. There's a third kind of energy. If you're not moving, if you're not storing up energy somewhere, there's one other way you might feel a lot of energy all of a sudden, and that's from what we call thermal energy. What's the term thermal mean? You guys might know the answer to this if you have a thermometer in your home. Right? That little root word therm means heat. So thermal energy is a heat energy. That's the type of energy that you get when you rub your hands together on a cold day and you have to warm everything up. It's because you're creating this extra friction and this extra heat, this thermal energy. Suddenly you now have warm hands. Now, think about this car for a minute. When I have the car ready to go, it's not moving at all. All the energy is stored up inside this twisted rubber band on the inside of the car. If it's stored up energy, what do we call it? You remember? That's the type of energy that starts with the letter P. Remember what kind of energy starts with the letter P? Yeah, that's potential energy. Exactly. Now, if I let this go and it starts to move, that potential energy that was stored up in the rubber band wants to get out. It creates motion. Now I have a car that's moving. That's the other kind of energy we talked about. It starts with the letter K. Remember the name for the type of energy of motion? Yeah, it's kinetic energy. So, in the universe, we always have one type of energy turning into a different type of energy. We saw potential energy when the car was just sitting here waiting to start moving. Then we saw kinetic energy when it started to move around. What about that third kind of energy? So you know how to get the third kind of energy? Well, you can rub your hands together and you can feel the energy, that heat energy in your hands. But there's another way. If you take one of your spare rubber bands, maybe Regina can help us out with this. Turns out when I stretch something like this, there's a lot of energy that I have to put into that rubber band. That turns into heat inside the rubber band, thermal energy. Turns out you can feel this change in temperature, this extra heat, if you hold the rubber band against your upper lip. So first, I'm not going to stretch the rubber band. I'm just going to hold it up to my upper lip like this. And the rubber band might feel a little bit cool, maybe room temperature. And then I'm going to take it away from my lip and stretch it. And now put it against your upper lip. Well, it feels just a little bit warmer, doesn't it? Yeah, there's that third kind of energy, the thermal energy. The heat that raises the thermometer in your house and makes this thermal energy that you can feel against your lip when you stretch the rubber band. You let it go, it goes back to being a little bit cooler again. So, your car is a perfect example of the science of energy, transferring one kind of energy to another. That's a pretty good experiment.
It was a great experiment. Thank you all so much for tuning in to our Zoom racing.
Great. Thank you,
All
guys.
right,
Have fun with your cars. We'll see you again next time.
keep rolling.